CESMII, the Smart Manufacturing Institute, manufacturing the voice of innovation, powering the smart manufacturing movement. As an energized ecosystem, we are unique. We work tirelessly to drive industry's productivity and competitiveness ahead in the United States. We are built upon the network of our dedicated members' active leadership and engagement. At CESMII, we see a way forward, and we recognize industry's need for clearer, more actionable vision for the smart, data-driven future of manufacturing. Growing manufacturing productivity, sustainability, and competitiveness. We seek to revolutionize manufacturing, obliterating the barriers for rapid change and innovation. Manufacturing of tomorrow is an exciting space where innovators, trailblazers, and makers all thrive, and where our brand is truly home.
Good morning, and welcome to the 6 Degrees of Smart Manufacturing webcast from CESMII, the Smart Manufacturing Institute. My name is Mike Yost, and I will be your host for today's conversation. I will be joined today by Mr. Conrad Leiva, who is an integration architect, strategist, and technology evangelist around smart manufacturing and digital manufacturing solutions for a company called iBASEt out of Southern California. He's also the chairman, longtime friend of mine, and chairman of the MESA International Smart Manufacturing Working Group. And as a recognized authority in the space through his role there within MESA and his day job, he's regularly engaging manufacturers, solution providers, business leaders, and professionals from across the manufacturing, the broad dimensions of manufacturing. And whenever Conrad and I get together and we talk about smart manufacturing, we talk about ecosystems. And so I believe he's uniquely qualified to share perspectives from across the broad dimensions of manufacturing. And so I asked him to join us here today. I will introduce Conrad in just a minute. But in the meantime, I want to talk a few things logistically about today's event. First of all, your microphones should be muted. If they are not, please mute your line. We will not take questions during this webcast. We are recording the webcast, so please be aware of that. And we will post the recording of the event online and notify everybody so we can start to drive conversations more amongst you than just between me and a guest. We are using the Zoom platform, so you should be able to see me through my camera. In a thumbnail. If you click on that thumbnail, you can make me disappear. You have different options of how you want to handle the speakers and the content that's being presented. So click on the thumbnails and do what you want with them. We will be out of here in 20 minutes. The goal behind this webcast series is for us to gain as much insight as we can gain from connecting with each other. I adamantly believe that the information that we need, the knowledge that we need for all of us to succeed in the area of smart manufacturing is out there, but it's likely locked away in the experiences and the domain experts that are out there in the CESMII community. And so we want to get as many people in and give them an opportunity to share their voice. And so we will get you out of here in 20 minutes. We'll be back in 2 weeks and do this again with another guest. As I mentioned, we won't be taking live Q&A, so if you have questions for me or for Conrad, please send them to me via email at mike.yost@cesmi.org, and we will answer all of those questions. So we definitely want to keep the dialogue going. So as I mentioned, the goal behind the webcast series and really behind my work at CESMII overall is to get people to answer questions like this, to share their perspectives of what smart manufacturing looks like to them. So I'm going to ask Conrad if he will turn his camera on so we can see his smiling face. And there you are, Conrad. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. So,
okay, fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to get out of the way and ask you the question, given the background I shared already. What does smart manufacturing look like to you?
Well, Mike, thanks for inviting me today. And as chairman of the Smart Manufacturing Working Group at MESA, working alliances at iBASEt. I've been fortunate to participate in many workshops and discussions on smart manufacturing with that mix of manufacturers, of hardware, software vendors, and consultants. And all these discussions over the years have shaped my point of view on smart manufacturing that I'll be talking about today. And I've noticed a shift in conversations over the last 2 decades, a very significant shift. And what we did at MESA was try to capture some of the shift in priorities and goals and into a definition of smart manufacturing. So if you move to the next slide, I have the definition there.
Yeah, there you go.
Smart manufacturing is the intelligent, real-time orchestration and optimization of business, physical, and digital processes within factories and across the entire value chain. And there's some very key words in that definition there. So, but getting back to how things have changed over the last 20 years, we've been talking, and I know you've been in some of these conversations about bringing IT and OT together for a long time, for many, many years, it feels like. But those older initiatives were focused on bringing intelligence. I'm going to quote that because in hindsight, that intelligence was really reactive. We were doing a lot of rear view mirror type of metrics. But the conversation now is about actually leveraging artificial intelligence and creating proactive intelligence that is more predictive and anticipating events, and that allows us to make better decisions closer to real time, and allows us to optimize and orchestrate. And like the definition said, not just within the plant, because the plant or the factory is one node in a value chain. We need to orchestrate the whole ecosystem.
Yeah,
that's an ecosystem of manufacturers, of many components, of multiple vendors, and many service providers.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with my question there, right? So as we talk about this, you talk about the value chain. We talk about supply chains, a pretty formal, well understood function within industry. Talk to me, talk to the group, share your views on what you mean by ecosystems, and then we certainly want to dig into what's different about it now versus the way that it's historically been.
Well, what's great about an ecosystem is you have this variety of participants, of partners in the ecosystem, but each one can focus on a specialty. You can have specialized partners, and that's very important because everybody wants to be more efficient. But the customers are demanding a broader, broader service. They want more complex solutions. So the way to still deliver those complex solutions at a high level of customized service is through an ecosystem of partners that are working together, where the ecosystem can deliver more value than if you just were to add up and try to put it all together yourself by going to each of those participants yourself.
So what is it that they're trying to connect together, right? So obviously manufacturers have worked with their suppliers and with their customers, and that's evolved, as you mentioned, over the last 2 decades to how we buy things, how we expect to buy things, how we expect to receive things. My son just told me this morning he ordered something online yesterday with 1-day delivery, and it should be at the house today, right? So people have been doing this for a long time. What's getting orchestrated, or what's new about today that it applies to, making it smart in the factories and beyond throughout the ecosystem?
Well, it's exactly what you were talking about. The e-commerce, business to consumer market has been really raising the bar for the business to business side, and you order something online and it shows up on your doorstep a couple of days later, How did that happen? It's like magic. I mean, did that provider you click on online do that entire process by itself? No, there were all kinds of partners. They have built an ecosystem, all kind of partners that have agreements in place, not just in how they're going to work together, but how their data and systems are connected. So that when I push that button, even before that, how that list of products comes together, how that everything that happens since I push that button, all the transmissions and coordination that needs to happen, so I can get a promised day on the screen right there, so I can actually get it delivered to my house. Now, this makes people say, why can't I do this in my plant? Why can't I deliver a service like that? There's also a shift to more products as a service, so where, you know, maybe we don't want to own everything. That's a lot of upfront expense. Maybe I only want to pay for the time I use something and have these usage-based models. Well, so maybe I used to just build something, throw it over the fence, and there was a whole other ecosystem that serviced things and kept them maintained. But now these ecosystems are coming closer together, and I don't just sell something, but I sell and I try to maintain it during its lifetime.
So the I guess one view would be, hey, that's all handled at the supply chain level, right? And there may be a touch point, or historically there's been a touch point from sort of the enterprise resource level, from the supply chain level, down to this place over there that makes the stuff, right? But nowadays, what's new as smart manufacturing solidifies and takes more hold is the fact that what's happening in those factories, what you're doing there at the system level, at the process level, is both connected to the process level and the traditional value creation that happens there, quality, keeping things safe, doing it profitably, et cetera, and also tied in with the business strategy, like you're talking about, of responsiveness to market demands, responsiveness to opportunities to sell your products, to be more responsive to the markets and things like that, right?
So another thing that is very different is that we have this old IoT, Internet of Things, craze and buzz going around. And a lot of people are trying to leverage these technologies, these cheaper sensors and platforms to gather data. Well, we're at a influx point where if we don't work on converging a lot of these things back, we can end up actually going backwards and creating more stovepipes and pipelines of data that don't talk to each other. So we could have, let's suppose in a food ecosystem, you can have sensors that are tracking the temperature of the food in the truck and say, well, I'm going to have all my sensors in a system, and I'm going to collect that data, and I'm going to know, the guy that's just worried about that truck and maintaining the temperature, that's all he cares about. But the truth is, all that data about, there's so much other data about that truck and what's in the truck and where it's going, that IoT data and the transactional data about the order, about the delivery, the receipt, all that data needs to, at some point, come together so that we can deliver a higher value to the customer that wants to know where the food came from. Was that temperature maintained and the safety levels during the whole way? Did somebody try to replace, good food with bad food along the way? So, there's a lot of potential with the Internet of Things coming together, with automation, with IT system, this IT-OT conversion. But there's also a lot of talks on how do we keep this strategy together and make it efficient so that the whole ecosystem works more efficient and we're not creating a lot of parallel data paths that don't talk to each other.
So you provided another slide, which I'm going to transition to here, that reinforces the point with some industry information that was recently published about taking an ecosystem perspective. So want to give you the chance to talk about this, but want to tie it in with your point that we've talked for a long time that data should be able to flow seamlessly across department boundaries, or across the supply chain, across the value chain. And we're seeing, as you have the capabilities now with smart sensors and smart devices and smart systems, that technologically it should be a heck of a lot easier, right? We should be able to do this, but we keep producing more data. Historically, as an industry, the plants don't use the data we created in the first place. There's a lot more than they're able to make value out of. So now we're going to exponentially increase the amount of data that is accessible to them. And so I guess just since the data availability isn't the issue, talk about, if you will, this point you were just enforcing about the strategy, whether it's e-commerce, it's better connectivity to your marketplace, and the disconnects about how companies are or are not able to realize on that.
Yeah, I mean, these statistics gathered by Accenture are I think are typical. I've seen some from other surveys that are very similar, and most manufacturers agree that ecosystems are going to be very critical to their future. And they see the power in that, and they see how ecosystems are evolving quickly. But they're struggling to move these convergence type of projects together. A lot of them are working separately. Their supply chain projects from their smart factory projects that are optimizing the plant. So like I was saying, that each one is worried about their stovepipe, right? I just want to keep this machine running at the best it can do. And I don't know about the rest of the value chain, but unless we work together in the ecosystem and the value chain dimensions, you're not going to realize the value of smart manufacturing. But it is hard. It's hard for individual companies to work on this very complex problem. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a journey. But organizations like MESA International, like CESMII, are really helping the smart manufacturing ecosystem and helping manufacturers break these walls, because you can tap into an ecosystem in itself of resources, and that's creating tools and practical strategies to accelerate the vision.
Well, and I think maybe one area I'd push back on is that an organization like CESMII, organization like MESA, organizations like others that are raising awareness and stuff, have the opportunity to create the possibility that we will have coordinated ecosystems. But I think the requirement is that the folks in the ecosystem want to play ball, right? That they don't want to just require solutions to solve a problem, right? So we're down to about our last 2 minutes here. I know you provided another slide that talks about the sort of the architectural way or the technological points of how this is possible today versus what was available in the past. Is that something you want to speak to here as we go to close?
Sure, just flash it quickly. I mean, it can be an intimidated diagram, but it really shows, I think, that the fact that the plant is a node in an entire value chain. And even though we have complex problems, and we need to figure out how we're going to connect all these things coming from different vendors in this whole value chain. And we do have great tools like the cloud services and platforms that are coming together, and we see as great potential for connecting the ecosystem, and we're seeing many examples of this in different industries. And really, the end goal is a virtual platform of platforms. There's no one platform. You have so many key players that that the standards and how we connect things together is becoming more and more important, and those conversations are happening in consortia and institutes like CESMII and MESA. So we really need to work together to deliver those levels of intelligence and orchestrations we were talking about.
And so your advice, as mine would be for folks to consider themselves part of this greater ecosystem and to engage now in the discussion about how we realize and overcome both the technological and the organizational and non-technology related.
Yeah, I would say if you're only focused on today, on optimizing your plant, you might be missing the boat. Really, you need to put a pause on that and not stop it, but you need to dedicate time to really looking at the whole bigger ecosystem picture, because these ecosystems are forming. You need to get your organization ready to participate in these ecosystem exchanges of data and processes, and because the ecosystems will disrupt the markets, and the innovators, the leaders, will dominate the markets for decades to come. I would say you're not going to build ecosystems and do ecosystem work by staying within your four walls. You have to really join the conversation. You have to get out there, participate with organizations, and look at partners and see what everybody else is doing.
Well, Conrad, I appreciate the time. Excuse me. Want to respect everybody else's time. We promised to be out of here in 20 minutes. And we are at that threshold. So to Conrad's point, you recommend anybody with questions, please email them to me. Also, if you have the desire to be here and either topics that you want to hear covered or something you want to jump on yourself and contribute the way Conrad did today, email me, and would love to include you in that. And want to just show you that 2 weeks from now, we will be back same time with Chris Damsgaard, who is the principal engineer for global reliability of General Mills, asking him the question, what smart manufacturing looks like from a global food company's perspective. So I will, until next time, say thank you and farewell. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Question. I have one question here. So you post the slide, right?